The gathering storm, the crystalline chamber of the Galactic Assembly, hung suspended in the void between three stars. Inside, representatives from 47 species gathered around the circular platform where High Chancellor Zirith stood. His 6 arms gestured at the holographic display that dominated the center of the room, showing star systems marked in ominous crimson. Zirith belonged to the Korvathi, an ancient species whose civilization had witnessed the rise and fall of a dozen galactic empires. His silver carapace reflected the light from the displays as he spoke through a neural translator that converted his electromagnetic pulses into audible speech. 17 systems have fallen in the last solar cycle, Zirith announced. The Crimson Dominion advances without pause. Their military philosophy centers on total overwhelming force, a strike with numbers that render conventional defense meaningless. Around the chamber, alien dignitaries shifted uneasily. The Sirathi, towering beings of living crystal, whose bodies refracted light in rainbow patterns, hummed in distress. The Mendari, small furry creatures with exceptional engineering minds, chittered among themselves. The Vornik, aquatic beings suspended in mobile water tanks, rippled with concern. General Kethros of the Sirathi military stood. His crystalline form caught the light as he spoke in resonant tones. We have committed every available warship. The Dominion outnumbers our combined fleets 3-1. Standard tactical doctrine suggests we consolidate our forces around the core worlds and prepare for siege warfare. That would abandon 18 billion civilians in the outer colonies, objected Ambassador Lin of the Mendari. Her whiskers twitched nervously. We cannot make such a choice. We may have no alternative, Kethros replied grimly. Mathematics does not favor sentiment. A quiet voice interrupted from the far side of the chamber. Perhaps we can offer assistance. Every head turned toward the human delegation. They sat in a section reserved for provisional members, species who had joined the Galactic Assembly within the last decade. Commander Elena Marsh stood slowly, her dark uniform crisp despite 3 days of continuous negotiation sessions. Humans had discovered faster than light travel only 8 years earlier. Their first contact with galactic civilization had been accidental when a human exploration vessel stumbled into Mendari space. Since then, humanity had been cautiously integrating into galactic society, mostly as observers and students. Marsh was in her mid-40s, with sharp features and steady gray eyes that had seen combat during Earth's unification wars. She carried herself with quiet confidence that some species mistook for arrogance. Commander Marsh, Zirith said carefully, humanity's technological capabilities are still developing. Your species possesses fewer than 200 interstellar vessels. The Assembly appreciates your presence, but this situation requires resources your people cannot yet provide. Marsh nodded acknowledgement. Our technology is indeed limited, but we're offering something else. Human crews, human tactics, human determination. A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. The Korvathi processed information through pure logic, and Marsh's statement made no computational sense. Explain, Zirith requested. Earth has a long military history, Marsh began. We've fought countless wars using inferior equipment against superior forces. We've learned to win through adaptation, creativity, and refusal to surrender. Our 200 ships may not seem significant, but we know how to make every vessel count. General Kethros made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. With respect, Commander, the Dominion has destroyed fleets of thousands. 200 ships will be consumed in minutes. Maybe, Marsh agreed. But minutes matter when civilians are evacuating. And we have a saying on Earth. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. The translator struggled with the idiom. Several species looked puzzled. But something in Marsh's tone made them listen. She activated a small device, and human historical data appeared in the holographic display. Images of ancient battles flashed past. Thermopylae, Alamo, Stalingrad, Chosin Reservoir. Places where humans had stood against overwhelming odds. These are examples of human tactical philosophy, Marsh explained. In each case, small forces delayed vastly superior enemies. Many times these defenders knew they wouldn't survive. They fought anyway because something was worth protecting. This is illogical, observed Zirith. Accepting certain death serves no survival purpose. It serves a purpose beyond survival, Marsh replied. It gives others time to live. That's worth dying for. The chamber fell silent. Most galactic species had evolved beyond such thinking. Survival instinct was foundational to their psychology. The idea of deliberately choosing death was alien to their understanding. Ambassador Lin spoke softly. You are offering to sacrifice your ships and crews? We're offering to hold the line, Marsh corrected. Wherever you need us most, for as long as necessary. High Chancellor Zirith processed this information. His logical mind identified the strategic value despite the emotional illogic. 200 ships crewed by beings willing to fight to the last might indeed buy critical time. There is a strategic location, Zirith said slowly. The Veil Nebula. It forms a natural choke point between the outer colonies and the Dominion's advance route. A fleet positioned there could delay enemy forces while we evacuate civilians and regroup our military. How long would we need to hold? Marsh asked. 72 hours minimum. 96 would ensure complete evacuation. Then we'll hold for 96 hours. Kethros stepped forward, his crystalline body pulsing with emotion. Commander, the Dominion will send overwhelming force. Current projections suggest you will face odds of 20-1. No fleet has survived such numbers. Marsh met his gaze steadily. No fleet has been crewed by humans. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would deploy its expeditionary force to the Veil Nebula. As the session ended, Kethros approached Marsh privately. I wish to understand, the Sirathi general said. You know your people will likely die, yet you volunteer them anyway. This conflicts with every survival algorithm in our military doctrine. Marsh considered her answer carefully. General, humans evolved as pack hunters. We survived by working together, by protecting each other even at personal cost. That instinct is still part of us. When someone needs help, we help, even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous. Your species frightens me, Commander. But I am grateful you are allies rather than enemies. 3 days later, Captain James Rivera stood on the bridge of the ESS Valiant, humanity's flagship. Around him, his crew ran final systems checks. They were young, most of them. Earth had pulled experienced personnel from retirement to crew these vessels. But there weren't enough veterans for every position. Asterisk Rivera was 52, a career naval officer who had commanded vessels during Earth's conflicts before first contact. He had gray streaking his dark hair and lines around his eyes from decades of staring at tactical displays. His crew trusted him absolutely. All ships reporting ready, Captain, his executive officer reported. Lieutenant Sarah Choin was 30, brilliant, and terrified. Rivera could see it in the slight tremor of her hands. But she kept working, kept moving, kept doing her duty. Thank you, Lieutenant, Rivera said calmly. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Captain Rivera. In a few moments, we'll jump to the Veil Nebula. Our mission is simple. Hold that position for 96 hours while civilians evacuate. Command estimates will face overwhelming numbers. They're probably right. He paused, looking around his bridge. Every face showed fear. Good. Fear meant they understood the situation. I won't lie to you, Rivera continued. This is going to be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced. Some of us won't make it home. Maybe none of us will. But 18 billion people are counting on us to buy them time. That's 18 billion mothers, fathers, children, friends. People who deserve to live. His voice hardened with determination. So we're going to stand in that nebula, and we're going to fight. We're going to fight with everything we have. And when the Dominion comes at us with their overwhelming numbers, they're going to learn something about humanity. They're going to learn that we don't quit. We don't surrender. And we damn sure don't run when people need us. A ragged cheer echoed across the fleet channels. Rivera smiled slightly. Fear was still there, but now something else burned alongside it. Purpose, determination, that stubborn human refusal to accept the inevitable. All ships, jump on my mark, Rivera ordered. Let's go make history. 200 human vessels activated their FTL drives simultaneously. They vanished from assembly space and reappeared at the edge of the Veil Nebula, a massive cloud of stellar gas that glowed with internal radiation. It was beautiful and deadly, the perfect place for a last stand. Aboard the observation cruiser positioned safely several light years away, Xerath and Kethros watched the human fleet take position. The humans had scattered throughout the nebula in small groups, violating every principle of concentrated firepower that Galactic doctrine taught. They positioned themselves incorrectly, Xerath observed. Divided forces will be destroyed piecemeal. But Kethros, who had studied human military history during the past 3 days, said nothing. He simply watched and wondered if perhaps humans understood something about warfare that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Long-range sensors detected the Dominion fleet entering the system. Crimson-hulled warships numbered in the thousands, advancing in perfect geometric formations. They moved with absolute confidence. Never having faced defeat. In the nebula, Captain Rivera studied his tactical display. His hands were steady now. Fear had transformed into focus. All ships, he transmitted. Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to delay. Make every shot count. Make them work for every light second of space. And if anyone asks later what happened here, they'll know that humanity held the line. The Dominion fleet entered the nebula, and the battle began. The stand at Veil Nebula, the first Dominion ships entered weapons. Range at 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time. Captain Rivera watched them approach on his tactical display, their formations precise and methodical. They moved like a swarm of crimson insects, thousands strong, confident in their numerical superiority. Weapons hot, Rivera ordered calmly. Wait for optimal firing solutions. Don't waste ammunition on shots that won't connect. The Valiant was positioned deep within the nebula's densest region, where sensor interference would mask their exact location. Around them, 19 other human vessels waited in similar hiding spots throughout the massive gas cloud. The remaining ships were scattered in clusters, creating a defensive network that seemed chaotic to galactic military observers. Dominion fleet began their systematic approach, sending forward scouts to map the nebula and locate enemy positions. These scouts were massive vessels by human standards, each one larger than Earth's flagship. They advanced confidently, scanning methodically. Fire, Rivera said quietly. The Valiant's railgun spoke first. Magnetic accelerators launched tungsten penetrators at relativistic speeds. The projectiles were simple, no sophisticated technology or energy shields, just dense metal moving fast enough to punch through almost anything. 3 Dominion scouts vanished in explosive decompression before their sensors even registered the attack. Across the nebula, other human ships opened fire from concealment. The Dominion fleet reacted immediately, redirecting thousands of vessels toward the detected weapon signatures. But the humans were already moving, using the nebula's interference to mask their new positions. Aboard the observation cruiser, Xerath processed the engagement data with growing confusion. The humans refuse to maintain defensive positions. They strike and relocate constantly. This violates concentrated firepower doctrine. Kethros watched intently, his crystalline form pulsing with thought. They are not fighting to win. They are fighting to delay. Every minute the Dominion spends searching for them is another minute civilians have to evacuate. The battle evolved into a deadly game of hide and seek across millions of cubic kilometers. Human ships would emerge from the nebula's gases, strike hard at Dominion formations, then vanish again before overwhelming return fire could destroy them. It was guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale. Lieutenant Shun monitored the tactical display on the Valiant's bridge, tracking friendly and enemy positions. Captain, the Dominion is adapting. They're dividing into smaller hunter groups to sweep the nebula systematically. Good, Rivera replied. Smaller groups are more vulnerable. Pass the word to all ships. Prioritize isolated enemy units. Hit them hard, hit them fast, then disappear. The destroyer ESS Relentless, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, was the first to engage an isolated Dominion hunter group. Santos was 45, a veteran of Earth's unification wars, who had lost family to conflict and understood the cost of violence. But she also understood necessity. Her ship emerged from a dense gas pocket directly behind 5 Dominion cruisers. At point-blank range by space combat standards, the Relentless unloaded every weapon simultaneously. Missiles, railguns, and laser batteries fired in coordinated volleys. 3 Dominion ships were destroyed before they could react. The remaining 2 turned to engage, but the Relentless was already accelerating away. Diving back into the nebula's concealment, "Damage report," Santos called out. "Shields at 60%. Hull intact. No casualties," her tactical officer reported. "Excellent. Find us another target." This pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships struck from unexpected angles, inflicted damage, and vanished. The Dominion fleet, designed for overwhelming frontal assaults, struggled to adapt to an enemy that refused to fight conventionally, but numerical superiority eventually began to tell. The S-Defiant, a frigate commanded by Captain Thomas Wu, found itself cornered by 12 Dominion vessels. Wu had been trying to draw enemies away from a damaged friendly ship when he miscalculated his escape route. All power to engines. Wu ordered. "We need speed now." But the Dominion ships had him boxed in. Energy weapons lanced through space, battering the Defiant's shields. Alarms wailed as systems overloaded. Wu looked around his bridge at his crew of 38. Most were in their 20s. Too young for this. "Captain, shields failing," his engineer reported. "Recommend immediate surrender." Wu shook his head. "Open a channel to the fleet. Tell them our position is compromised. We're going to give them something to remember us by." He turned to his weapons officer. "Override all safety protocols. I want every weapon firing at maximum output simultaneously. I don't care if they overheat or explode. Sir, that will destroy our weapon systems. We'll be defenseless." "We're already defenseless, Ensign. Let's make it count." The Defiant's weapons blazed with desperate intensity. Railguns fired so rapidly, their barrels began to warp from heat. Missile tubes launched their entire payloads in seconds. The concentrated barrage overwhelmed 1 Dominion cruiser in a second. But return fire was shredding the Defiant apart. "Hull breaches on all decks," someone called out. "Life support failing." Wu gripped his command chair as the bridge shook. Helm, full acceleration directly toward the largest enemy vessel. Impact course. The Defiant, her weapons destroyed and her hull breaking apart, accelerated on a suicide run. The Dominion flagship tried to evade, but the human ship matched every course correction with stubborn determination. At the last second, Wu activated the ship's reactor overload sequence. The explosion consumed both ships and damaged 3 others. 38 human lives ended in that moment. But they took 300 Dominion crew members with them and created a gap in the enemy formation that 2 other human ships exploited. Immediately, aboard the observation cruiser, Zirith watched the Defiant's final moments in stunned silence. They deliberately destroyed themselves. There was no strategic benefit. They could have surrendered. Humans do not surrender, Kethros said softly. I am beginning to understand this about them. The battle raged for 18 hours straight. Human casualties mounted steadily. Ship after ship went silent, their crews dying in fire and vacuum. But the Dominion advance had been reduced to a crawl. Every light year they gained cost them dozens of vessels. Captain Rivera had been awake for 23 hours when Lieutenant Shun brought him updated casualty reports. They had lost 41 ships, more than 20% of their fleet gone in less than a day. The Dominion is requesting communication, Shun reported. Rivera raised an eyebrow. Put them through. The holographic display flickered, showing a Dominion commander. The aliens were roughly humanoid, but covered in crimson chitinous armor that seemed to grow from their bodies. Their faces held multiple eyes arranged in geometric patterns. Human commander, the Dominion officer spoke through a translator. Your resistance is pointless. You cannot win. Surrender now, and we will grant your crews swift deaths. Rivera studied the alien calmly. Surrender isn't really our style. We're going to keep fighting. Asterisk. Why? You accomplish nothing. You delay the inevitable. We're buying time for innocent people to escape. That's not nothing. That's everything? The Dominion commander's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. Your species is defective. Survival instinct demands retreat when defeat is certain. You violate natural law. Rivera smiled grimly. We rewrote natural law a long time ago. We decided that some things matter more than individual survival, community, duty, protecting the innocent. Those ideas are worth dying for. This is insanity. Maybe, but it's our insanity, and we're damn proud of it. The communication ended. Rivera turned to his crew. All ships status update? How are we doing? Reports came in from across the fleet. Ammunition levels were dropping. Ship systems were breaking down from constant combat stress. Crew fatigue was becoming critical. But morale remained unbelievably high. On the ESS horizon, a young weapons operator named David Park sat at his station, hands steady despite exhaustion. Beside him, a Sirathi military observer named Talanth had requested permission to witness human combat operations firsthand. You are afraid, Talanth observed, his crystalline body detecting Park's elevated stress hormones. Yet you continue functioning. How? Park glanced at the alien. Of course I'm afraid. I'd be stupid not to be. Those Dominion ships could kill us any second. But being afraid doesn't mean I get to quit. Other people are depending on me. This defies my understanding of psychology. Fear is just information, Park explained, echoing something his drill instructor had taught him. It tells me there's danger, but I decide what to do about it, not my fear. An alarm interrupted the conversation. 3 Dominion ships were converging on their position. The horizon maneuvered desperately, but one enemy vessel got a targeting lock. Energy weapons slammed into their shields, overwhelming them instantly. Secondary explosions ripped through the hull. Abandon ship, the captain ordered. All hands to escape pods. Park helped Talanth toward the escape pod bay, the Sirathi moving awkwardly in the emergency. Behind them, bulkheads collapsed and atmosphere vented into space. They made it to a pod with seconds to spare, joining 12 other crew members. As the pod ejected, Park watched the horizon die. The ship's captain had stayed aboard, manually targeting weapons to cover the escape pods. The horizon fired until her reactor detonated. Taking one Dominion ship with her dot in the cramped escape pod, Talonth watched the humans around him. They were grieving, terrified, injured. But they were also already planning, already discussing how they could help other ships, contribute to the fight, even without a vessel. "Your captain chose death," Talonth said quietly. "She could have escaped." Park nodded, tears streaming down his face. "She made sure her crew got out first. That's what leaders do. They protect their people, even if it costs everything." The battle continued for another 36 hours. The Dominion kept advancing, kept destroying human ships, kept expecting the survivors to break and run. But humans don't break. They bend, they adapt, they find new ways to fight. When ammunition ran low, human ships used pieces of destroyed vessels as kinetic weapons. When weapon systems failed, they rammed enemy ships with whatever propulsion they had left. When death became inevitable, they made it count for something. 72 hours into the battle, the evacuation of the outer colonies completed. 18 billion civilians had been safely relocated to core worlds. The human fleet had held the line exactly as promised. Only 63 human ships remained functional. They had faced odds of 20 to 1 and somehow maintained their position through sheer stubborn determination. The Dominion fleet had lost over 800 vessels, trying to break through. Captain Rivera received the evacuation confirmation on the Valiant's bridge. His crew looked to him, waiting for orders. They could withdraw now. The mission was complete. "All ships," Rivera transmitted. "Civilians are safe. Mission accomplished. We've done what we came to do." He paused, looking around his damaged bridge. Lieutenant Chun watched him steadily, understanding what he was about to say. "But the Dominion fleet is still here," Rivera continued, "still threatening our allies. So here's the plan. Anyone who wants to withdraw has my permission. No shame, no questions. You've already done more than anyone expected." Silence filled the communications channel. Then, one by one, ship captains responded. "The Aurora stays. Phoenix holding position. Valkyrie isn't going anywhere." 63 voices. Not one chose retreat. Aboard the observation cruiser, High Chancellor Zirith processed this new impossibility. The humans had completed their mission objective. Tactical doctrine demanded they withdraw to preserve remaining forces. Instead, they were choosing to continue fighting. "They will all die," Zirith stated. "Yes," Kethros agreed. His crystalline form pulsed with something that might have been sorrow or might have been awe. "But they will die protecting others. I am beginning to understand that humans consider this the highest honor." The Dominion fleet, frustrated and confused by an enemy that refused to follow conventional behavior, made a strategic error. They committed their reserve forces in a massive assault meant to crush the remaining humans through overwhelming firepower. The human ships didn't try to survive. They went on the attack. The final battle lasted 6 brutal hours. Human vessels dove into the heart of the Dominion formation, targeting command ships and critical logistics vessels. They fought with insane aggression, trading their lives for maximum enemy damage. It was beautiful and terrible, a demonstration of what happens when a species weaponizes its own mortality. The ESS Valiant was among the last ships still fighting. Rivera's bridge was a disaster. Half the stations destroyed, wounded crew members working through pain and exhaustion. But they kept firing, kept fighting, kept refusing to surrender. "Captain, we've lost main propulsion," Sean reported. Blood ran down the side of her face from a head wound. "Secondary power failing. We've got maybe 5 minutes of weapons capability left." Rivera nodded. "Then we use those 5 minutes." target the Dominion flagship. Everything we've got. The Valiant, her hull breached in a dozen places, her crew dying, made one final attack run. Every remaining weapon fired in coordinated salvos. Railguns, missiles, laser batteries, all unleashed in desperate fury. The Dominion flagship's shields buckled under the assault. Return fire tore the Valiant apart, but not before human. Weapons penetrated the enemy flagship's armor and destroyed its reactor core dot as his ship disintegrated around him. Captain James Rivera's last thought was satisfaction. They had held the line. They had saved 18 billion lives. That was worth everything. The Dominion fleet, having lost their command vessel and over 1,000 ships to an enemy that should have been crushed in hours, made an unprecedented decision. They retreated. For the first time in their military history, the Crimson Dominion withdrew from a battlefield, not because they couldn't win, but because the cost of victory had become too high. Humans had taught them that some enemies were too dangerous to fight, not because of their weapons, but because of their willingness to use those weapons without regard for personal survival. In the Galactic Assembly Chamber 1 week later, High Chancellor Zirith stood before the Council. Behind him, holographic displays showed the Vale Nebula battlefield. Debris fields marked where 200 human ships had made their stand. The human expeditionary force held the Vale Nebula for 96 hours against overwhelming odds, Zirith reported. They suffered 100% casualties. Not a single ship survived, but they completed their mission objective and, remarkably, forced enemy withdrawal. The chamber was silent. Every species present was trying to process what had happened. I have analyzed human psychology extensively since this battle, Zirith continued. I believe I now understand what makes them unique. Most species prioritize survival above all else. Humans prioritize purpose above survival. They choose what they die for. This makes them the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. General Kethros stood, his crystalline form glowing with emotion. I propose that humanity be granted full council membership and military authority. They have proven themselves beyond any doubt. They have shown us what courage truly means. The vote was unanimous. Commander Elena Marsh stood to accept the honor on behalf of humanity. She held a data chip containing the names of every human who had died at Vale Nebula. 24,000 souls who had chosen duty over survival. We didn't do this for recognition, Marsh said quietly. We did it because people needed help. That's what humans do. We help, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs everything. And we'll keep doing it because that's who we are. At the Vale Nebula, a monument was constructed from the wreckage of human ships. It stood 300 meters tall, visible from light years away. Inscribed on every surface were the names of the fallen. At the base, a simple message in 100 languages. They were afraid. They fought anyway. They were human. And across the galaxy, species that had never understood sacrifice began to learn from the humans, who had taught them that some things were worth more than living. Some things were worth dying to protect. The Dominion never recovered from Vale Nebula. Their military doctrine, built on overwhelming numbers and psychological warfare through intimidation, had met an enemy immune to fear. Not because humans weren't afraid, but because they refused to let fear control them. In military academies across Allied space, the Battle of Vale Nebula became required study, not for its tactics, which violated most conventional wisdom, but for its demonstration of willpower. Humans had proven that determination could matter more than technology, that courage could overcome overwhelming odds, and that the willingness to sacrifice could itself become a weapon. And somewhere, in the cold mathematics of galactic warfare, a new variable entered every strategic calculation. How would humans respond? Because when humanity entered the battlefield, nothing was certain except that they would fight until the last breath, protecting others with unshaken resolve. That was the day the galaxy learned to respect humanity. Not for their technology, not for their numbers, but for their unbreakable spirit and their refusal to abandon those in need, no matter the cost.